1347. Caffa, a bustling port on the Black Sea. A Genoese ship cuts through the dark water, its ropes heavy with more than just cargo. Rats scurry ashore, unseen carriers of a coming catastrophe. A merchant coughs, a single ominous note in the symphony of the night. This isn't just a ship arriving, it's a storm, a black storm. Weeks later, the same ship docks in Messina, Sicily. The scene is familiar. Merchants hawking their wares, children chasing each other through the sun-drenched square. Life, vibrant and loud. Then, a woman stumbles. She doesn't get up. Panic is a whisper at first, then a scream. It begins with a fever, then the telltale swellings, the boils. The Black Death has arrived in Europe. What was once the world's great artery of commerce and culture, the Silk Road, suddenly chokes. The lifeblood of continents slows to a trickle, then stops. Caravans, once miles long, now sit abandoned in the desert sun. Great cities like Samarkand and Bukhara, which thrived on the endless flow of travelers, slam their gates shut, locking the world out and themselves in. In remote monasteries, fearful monks burn precious, infected scrolls, believing the very paper carries the plague. The vibrant hum of the road goes silent, replaced by the whisper of wind over sand and the tolling of distant bells. The world holds its breath, terrified. But even in the darkest moments, humanity fights back. In a small Chinese village, long before official decrees, a community takes its fate into its own hands. A healer, her face etched with worry, grinds herbs into a poultice. Villagers, their mouths and noses covered with simple cloth masks, tend to the sick in isolated huts. This is the birth of quarantine, not as a law, but as a desperate act of survival. They understood instinctively that separation was their only hope. These small, isolated acts of self-preservation would soon echo across the globe, laying the foundation for a new way of thinking about disease. Back in Europe, the scene is one of apocalyptic despair. Cities reek of death. Carts piled high with bodies rumble through empty streets. Yet amidst the horror, a strange new figure emerges: the plague doctor. Clad in a long coat, a wide-brimmed hat, and a terrifying beaked mask stuffed with herbs to ward off the bad air, they become a symbol of the era. They are a mixture of science, superstition, and sheer, desperate courage, walking into the houses of the dying when everyone else has fled. The constant tolling of church bells marks the endless procession of the dead, a soundtrack to a world unraveling. But humanity is a pattern-seeking species. Even in chaos, we search for order. From the daily horror, observations are made, notes are taken. People notice that ships arriving from plague-stricken areas seem to bring the sickness with them. In the port city of Ragusa, now Dubrovnik, a revolutionary idea is born. All arriving ships and their crews must wait in isolation for 30 days, a Trentino. This is soon extended to 40 days, a Quarantino, giving us the word we still use today, quarantine. It is the first organized, state-sponsored public health measure in history. City-states begin to form sanitation boards, tasked with cleaning streets, managing waste, and enforcing these new rules. From the ashes of the Black Death, the concept of public health, the idea that the well-being of a community is a shared responsibility, is born. While Europe was grappling with quarantine and plague doctors, another quieter revolution was happening in the great libraries of the Islamic world. In Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba, scholars gathered, surrounded by towering stacks of scrolls and books. They debated the nature of the plague. Was it a divine punishment, or was it something else, a contagion passed from person to person? This was a radical idea, often at odds with religious doctrine. But they were not working in a vacuum. Despite the dangers, some knowledge continued to flow along the fractured Silk Road. Medical texts from China, detailing their experiences with outbreaks, and ancient treatises from India found their way into these libraries. The scholars meticulously copied, translated, and debated these works. They blended the empirical observations of Hippocrates with the detailed classifications of Ibn Sina and the frontline reports from the East. Even as death stalked the streets outside, inside these walls knowledge was being preserved, synthesized, and advanced. It was a testament to the enduring power of the human intellect, a flickering candle in an overwhelming darkness. Imagine this. The Silk Road, once teeming with life, is now a ghost road. The wind howls through a desolate mountain pass. But look closer. A lone figure walks the path, a silhouette against the setting sun. His face is covered with a mask, a practice learned from the East. In his pack, he carries not silk or spices, but scrolls, precious medical texts and observations copied from a library in a besieged city. He is a link in a fragile chain, a courier of ideas in a time of death. This single traveler represents a profound truth. Even when trade collapses and empires crumble, the thirst for knowledge, the need to understand and survive, can push humanity forward. The road of goods had failed, but the road of ideas, though perilous, remained open. And then a spark ignites a new fire. In a dimly lit workshop in Mainz, Germany around the year 1440, a man named Johannes Gutenberg is perfecting a radical invention. He arranges small metal letters into words, locks them into a frame, and applies ink. Using a modified wine press, he transfers those inked letters onto a sheet of paper. The process is remarkably fast, infinitely faster than copying a book by hand. What Gutenberg has done is combine a Chinese invention, movable type, with European metallurgy and mechanics. The printing press is born, and with it, the world changes forever. The impact is immediate and explosive. The medical knowledge that was once the domain of a few scholars in isolated libraries, the life-saving ideas about quarantine and contagion that traveled so slowly and perilously, can now be duplicated by the thousands. Pamphlets on public health, medical texts, ancient wisdom, it all becomes accessible. Knowledge is no longer chained to a monastery desk or locked in a sultan's library. It's in the hands of doctors, students, and city officials. The printing press makes knowledge unstoppable, democratizing information in a way the world had never seen. It ensures that the lessons learned from the Black Death, paid for with millions of lives, will never be forgotten. The Black Storm eventually passes. The fever recedes. The bells fall silent. Slowly, tentatively, the world begins to heal. The Silk Road, scarred and silent for so long, breathes again. Caravans once more trace the ancient paths, but they carry new things alongside the silk and porcelain. They carry new medical knowledge, new laws of public health, and a new understanding of the interconnected world. The cities rebuild, but they do so with new sanitation systems and quarantine stations. Medicine evolves, armed with the hard-won lessons of the plague and the widespread knowledge distributed by the printing press. The road, which had carried the plague to the west, now becomes the conduit for the cure, not a single medicine, but the cure of knowledge, cooperation, and foresight. The Black Death was an unimaginable tragedy, but it forced humanity to innovate, to collaborate, and to create the very foundations of our modern world. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through one of history's darkest, yet most transformative chapters. The story of the Silk Road is the story of us. If you found this journey as fascinating as we did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories of how our world came to be. See you next time.